my name is Kayla. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do an overview of the books that I read in August of 2021. Let's go! Here are the 4 books I finished in August. My overview of the books have spoilers, so beware if you haven't read them. The first book that I read this month was The Midnight Library. I was really excited to read this book. It came out in 2020 and it was on all of these lists for the best book of 2020. So I had been waiting forever to read this book. It was in such high demand with my Library Libby app that I was waiting for the hold for 6 months. And honestly, it was not worth the wait. I was actually so disappointed with it. The whole time when I was reading, I was just really uninterested. It did not grab me at all, and I really had to force myself to read this one. So usually with books, like, I'm excited about it and I'll think about the characters or like what's happening like while I'm going about my day until I can pick the book back up again. And this book was just not like that. I kept remembering that I needed to read the book, and then I would get bummed out that I needed to read it. I just found it very like dry and boring. Like, Nora, the main character, had almost no personality, and I had a hard time accepting that in her main alternative universe lives that she visited, that she was just this wildly successful person, like a rock star and an Olympian. Like, of course, if she would have stuck with the record deal or the swimming, she would have been like wildly successful with her careers. But then also in life, she was super unhappy. It just didn't seem realistic to me. And then at some point, he just listed out like 2 pages of more insignificant lives that she would have had, like almost as an afterthought. I was just not impressed by the book. And I think it bummed me out even more since I had a hold on the book for so long and I was so excited to read it. I don't know, I like the idea of there being all of these different lives out there, like based on different life decisions, but I felt like the author would just drone on, and he was trying to be like so philosophical, and like the whole book just seemed so forced to me, and it was just not fun to read. So after finishing The Midnight Library, I tried to read another one of his books. I had found it at a secondhand store like months ago. It's How to Stop Time. And I tried to read it throughout the entire month of August. I kept remembering that I had to read it, and I would go back to it, and like, I just had the same issues with it that I had with The Midnight Library. It was just boring and nothing seemed to be happening. The main character was also very boring and very bland. And so finally I stopped and I just gave up through it halfway, and I decided not to finish it, which is really rare for me not to finish a book. So I don't know. I've just come to the conclusion that this author is just not for me. So throughout the rest of the month, I read the 3 books in part of the series of the Court of Thorns and Roses books. So I'm going to try and talk about how I felt about them individually. So the next book that I read, obviously the first book in the series, is A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I finally read this after like hearing about these books being so popular for so long, and I was just ignoring them for so long. I have to admit that I didn't know anything about the book series besides the fact that it had like fae characters, and I love fantasy books with fae characters. It is labeled as young adult, like a young adult book, which I think beforehand kind of like turned me off of reading the series for so long, because sometimes that genre can be kind of like hit or miss for me depending on like the content and where it's based. Like if it's based in high school, I'm like, oh, I can't even. But I think since she's younger, but it's not based in high school, so I think I was able to, you know, like be immersed in it more. And I did not expect to like this as much as I did. It really grabbed me immediately, and I finished the first one. I actually finished each one within a few days, and it did take me longer than I'd like to admit to realize that in the book that it was like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So that fact did not hit me until Feyre had come back to the manor and was talking to Elise about the curse, like after everybody from this spring court had been taken to Under the Mountain. And then once it hit me that it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, I was like, Dad, it was so obvious with him like taking her away and then like her painting being her thing instead of like reading, which was Belle's thing. And then I was like, oh, when Elise told her that it was a curse that Feyre could have just broken. Again, obviously, just like with the Beauty and the Beast. But I am glad that I didn't know that it was sort of a retelling before I read the book. Because I think it was fun, like, being surprised by the curse secret. Before I found out about the curse, when Feyre was just, like, hanging out at the Spring Court Manor, I thought she had some sort of, like, major Stockholm Syndrome going on. I thought it was weird that she randomly was just kind of, like, okay with it. Like, she resisted at first, and then she was so okay with it. And then I was like, well, I guess I would fall in love with the Fae dude too if all day I just got to eat and paint and be taken care of by this handsome man. Like, oh, this isn't too shabby of a setup. So then when I finished this first one, and then the next book, A Court of Mist and Fury, I was curious to see where she was going to go with taking the Rhys character. So at first, when I was reading the second one, I was shocked that the author was turning Tamlin into like this such unlikable character. I don't know. I guess I didn't realize from the first book how much of a main character Rhys was going to be. Like, I knew he was in the second book, but I didn't know why. I liked him popping up in the first book, but I just did not expect him to be just like straight up the main male character in this book. I was disappointed in the fall of the Tamlin character. I don't know, maybe more just disappointed in myself for not thinking that something was off with their relationship in the first book. But I think that when Feyre talked about their relationship shortly after, when she went to go live with Rhys, she said, "I'm thinking that I was a lonely, hopeless person, and I might have fallen in love with the first thing that showed me a hint of kindness and safety. And I'm thinking maybe he knew that. Maybe not actively, but maybe he wanted to be that person for someone. And maybe that worked for who I was before. Maybe it doesn't work for what I am now." So that quote really did clear it up for me. And I do appreciate SGM really giving us an explanation and justification for what was happening. And I actually understood more after I read that passage. I thought that it was fair that Feyre had changed as a person and that she just didn't want to be with him anymore. I do think that this book was better than the first one. Because you got to see so much character development from Rhys. And it was really easy for me to root for him and their relationship. And it did seem more believable than her and Tamlin's, which was, I think, obviously her point in making Feyre and Tamlin's relationship kind of seem like a little bit off in the first book. So I was rooting for Feyre and Rhys's relationship. And I started to get impatient with the book because I wanted them to be together. So I ended up I would flip ahead and kind of try and give myself a sneak peek of what was going to happen. And I ended up ruining the whole them being mated surprise for myself, but I wasn't that shocked, so it was fine that I ruined it for myself. It didn't ruin the experience of the book at all. So overall, I did love the direction this book took. I really had no idea Feyre was going to separate from Tamlin so quickly. Almost immediately in the book, a few chapters in, she's like, "I'm good." And she's like, "I'm gonna go to the Live in the Night Court" for the rest of the book. I felt like it was unexpected. I didn't expect it just because I didn't know anything about the books or the story beforehand. So I like that twist that, kind of came with her, just being "Hey, let's do this, Rhys." And then I thought that the cliffhanger at the end of the book was a great way to launch into the third. So I started reading the third book right away. So my last book that I read this month was A Court of Wings and Ruin. So starting out, I loved that SJM started with Feyre being back at the Spring Court. I enjoyed watching her play the part of the spy, but mostly I loved having Lucien back. I missed that character so much throughout the whole second book. And honestly, I actually like his character more than I liked any of the side characters that were introduced at the Night Court. And I don't know if that's because we spent so much time with him in the first book. He just kind of has that special place in my heart. But then I was annoyed when partway through this third book, when he was just gone again. I don't know. I really felt like he should have been there the whole book. When he came back with her to the Night Court, he should have stayed there with her. Just because I like their relationship. I like their friendship. And I really need him to have a happy ending. So this book really focused on the war and the planning for it, and the strategizing for it, which was fine. I knew where the story was, it was what the story needed, where it needed to go. And honestly, I don't know, it didn't grab my attention as much. I found some of it to be dry. And then there were a lot of characters and then characters' backstories to keep track of. And I think by this point in the book, or point in the series, her writing style had just kind of started to wear on me a little bit. I don't know, with how she does her sentence structure and dialogue. It just kind of started to get a little bit repetitive, especially after reading this book in a row after the other two. It was just kind of a lot. Also, I think that this book almost made Feyre almost more annoying to me. I already didn't love her in the first two books, and then with this third, I felt like I was kind of more being pushed into liking Nesta's character a lot more. I liked her from what I saw of her in the other books, just kind of her bold and brashness, but she really grabbed me in this book. And I don't know, I guess that's a good thing. And I want to know where her and Caston's relationship goes, which leads into the fourth book. So I do have to say I have many random complaints about some of the characters' stories in this last book, but I'm not going to get into some small examples being Feyre's father and his just random immersions into the story, and then also Alis just kind of disappearing from the story. But then on the other hand, with Hamlin, I am glad that he did get a bit of a redemption in the end. She really had made him out to be this monster throughout the series. And honestly, I don't know, I feel like she did his character a little dirty. I felt like she could have given him more grace in how he handled things. So I'm glad that at least she amended him instead of just killing him off, which I had expected her to do, mainly just because all of these characters kept talking about how they wanted to kill him. So the end of the book was good. It was a bit underwhelming, and I was okay with the story being over. I didn't crave more of it once I was done. I do think there were a lot of things that were left unresolved. There is kind of the next book. I don't know if it's considered the next book in the series, but I'm not planning on reading it. It's The Court of Frost and Starlight. I don't know. I read through the reviews and a lot of them were saying it was a waste of time. So I think I'll skip that one. And then I also might wait a little bit longer until I read A Court of Silver Flames. I want to read Nesta's story and I want to see if some of these things from this third book kind of get wrapped up and resolved. Some of these character stories, but I do need a little bit of a break from the series just for now, and then probably in a few months I'll pick up that fourth book. So far this year I have read 46 out of my 52 books. So thanks for watching and I will see you next time. Bye!